Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. We've got Larry on his hotline down there in the south. How you doing there, Larry?
Well, my phone is working late this evening, but it's been out for 24 hours, so I'm just glad to be on the show.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I guess maybe we should start with of what's going on here. May have something to do with the so-called fertilizer explosion over there in Beirut, which may also have to do with Israel, which may also have to do with why Turkey is abandoning its NATO exercises and heading rapidly to the Aegean and Mediterranean for nobody knows why. So where do we want to start, Larry? How about maybe this headline, something weird, this is from Hal Turner, is going on. White House staff gathers to watch President depart. Now, he's got his date wrong. We did some vetting on this, and that occurred on the 6th, and that was the gathering before he left to go to Ohio, because he never went to the White House after that. He's in New Jersey. He never returned to the White House. But he did say something extremely strange. He said he had a lot of enemies, and very wealthy enemies, which, of course, we know. Soros and the rest of them are all extremely wealthy people. He used the term middlemen because of the drug, and the drug cartels, by the way, are the instrument being used to virtually take over the whole world. I don't know where they got their power. Nobody elected Fauci in the United States, yet he's pretty much running it. Nobody elected Queen Birx. Evidently, King and Queen there are running this country, basically. They're the ones ordering, basically, and the Democratic Communist governors are the ones ordering all these lockdowns. Who elected Bill Gates? I don't recall anybody electing Bill Gates, and yet he's basically running the whole show on top of Birx and Fauci and the rest of them. So I'm a little bit curious why the American people have bowed down and licking the boots of Fauci, Birx, and Gates when nobody ever elected them to power. What do you think, Larry?
If you want my opinion, I'm going to use a quote from a very politically incorrect and racist movie called Gone with the Wind. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
And I think that's about where I think a lot of people are at, but they're not going to do anything. And meanwhile, all kinds of new lockdowns are beginning to rear their ugly head. They're lying through their teeth when it comes to the economy. Absolutely just lying through their teeth. And anyway, says something weird is going on. White House staff gathers to watch the president depart, which they don't ever do. And if the picture is true, and it's from yesterday, he left around 12 o'clock, I think, to go to Ohio. Everybody was out there wishing him well. Why would they do that? Anyway, he boarded his helicopter, and the entire White House staff went outside to watch him leave, which is, as I said, never been done before. Something is up, Hal Turner says, but I'm not sure what it is. I guess one could wonder exactly what is going on when you put together some of this stuff. Now, Beirut was struck with a missile that everyone is denying. We now have pictures of the actual missile itself. We have pictures of the rocket or whatever it is. I guess you could call it a very high-speed missile. Pictures and video show the object hitting just before the massive explosion. Then we have Trump talking about powerful enemies, and you might not see me for a while. Then we have the repeaters, ham radio repeaters in New York and New Jersey, basically where Trump is, mysteriously go offline. And I'm wondering, Larry, do you suppose they know of a valid assassination threat or attempt has been made, and that's why he's going underground?
Well, Stuart, that's a high possibility. I've also monitored today some of the prophetic and prayer warrior people, and there seem to be a lot of requests for urgent prayer for President Donald Trump. And one of the things that's odd, if you'll remember, sometime back, maybe almost a year ago, there was possible attacks, that were going to set up for Trump. And remember,
Yep.
they were indicating that possibly that the people doing this were using some type of ham or shortwave frequencies to bypass regular communications.
Okay. So then they might want to shut everything down. Actually, the ham radio operators are your kind of last line of defense, as I understand it, as far as
true, Stuart.
communications.
Basically, the ham operators really, and we've seen a lot of end of the world scenarios, if you will, and really, the ham operators can get the word out of catastrophes and actually wars, around the world, quicker than anyone can. When a lot of communications is down, including electricity and power and a lot of the regular comms, ham operators can do that.
Oh. So, the other thing is very, very odd now. Q alert that you posted on your site, Larry, U.S.-China communications down. China doesn't answer the hotline given U.S. military and intel major concerns. What's going on, do you think? Is this just part of an overall scenario before we get into the war?
Well, it could be. You remember, if you will, it wasn't too long ago that, remember, the North Korean and South Korean hotline that North Korea suddenly wouldn't answer it. They refused to answer. Well, we're facing the same thing apparently now with China, which may mean that China is making some moves that they don't want to be questioned about.
So we know Taiwan is in their target. Have we gotten any more news out of there? I mean, we did have news that Chinese military ships were seen off the coast of the islands, and stuff was coming out of those islands about being surrounded basically by Chinese troops. But then we never heard any more about it. It was kind of like everything else they're doing now is total censorship, basically. Have you heard any more at all from anyone?
No, the latest I heard was a Chinese general threatened to invade Taiwan immediately if the U.S. sent any aid to Taiwan, any military aid or assistance. So, it's kind of here we are again at another chess game, if you will.
Yeah. Here's an insider report out of Israel, so it claims. It says Israel bombed Beirut. A confidentially high-informed Israeli source has told me that Israel caused a massive explosion at the Beirut port earlier today, which killed over 100 and injured thousands. The bombing also virtually leveled the port itself and caused massive damage throughout the city. Israel targeted a Hezbollah weapons depot at the port and planned to destroy it with an explosive device. Tragically, Israeli intelligence did not perform due diligence on their target, Thus, they did not know, or if they did know, they didn't care, that there were 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate stored in a next-door warehouse. The explosion at the arms depot ignited the warehouse, causing the catastrophe that revolted. It is, of course, unconscionable that Israel agents did not determine everything about their target, including what was in its immediate vicinity. The tragedy Israel has wreaked is a war crime of immense magnitude. Now, we do have pictures of this missile, which they're all trying to deny. They're saying there was no such thing. Well, in Arab, that came from Arabia, didn't it, Larry? The picture of the actual missile itself?
That came from Arabian sources, and it's Arabic in writing, on the photograph itself. So it came out of the Middle East.
So, do you suppose this Turkey business is part of that?
Well, you just really don't know, and something that's disconcerting, if you will, is some rumors and reports coming out of the Middle East at the moment indicating that whoever's responsible for this, what they're calling a nuclear strike now, a nuclear missile strike on Lebanon, is about to receive the same thing back, another nuke back to the sender. So it's very, very tense over there. And by the way, you can't get information in and out almost at all. A lot of my sources are being blocked. And today I did receive information that there had been some rocket attacks over the northern border from Syria into the Golan region and the northern area. And also Hamas is firing some rockets. So things are stepping up over there, but there seems to be a news blackout, if you will.
Yeah, what's a little suspicious is this breaking news: Turkish Navy ordered to withdraw from standing NATO Maritime Group 2, proceed immediately to the Aegean and the Mediterranean Sea. A full mobilization of the Turkish Navy has been ordered by its capital, Ankara. Turkish naval vessels have been ordered to withdraw from standing NATO Maritime Group 2 and proceed forthwith to the Mediterranean and Aegean Sea. According to the Greek Navy, 3 frigates belonging to the Turkish Navy are crossing the Dandelis, I guess, on their way to the southern Aegean. So this is kind of suspicious, isn't it? Somebody's getting ready for something.
It seems like Erdogan's going to take this as an opportunity to attack Israel again, if you will. And most of the attacks that he does on Israel are generally political, but it's entirely possible that that'll expand as time goes by.
Yeah, so now we tie this together with Trump's remark. I'm sure most of you have already heard it that are listening. But what he said was really kind of cryptic. And nobody really knows why he said it or what he meant by it. But basically, Trump says, this may be the last time you see me for a while. Now, this is from Sorcher Fall article. It's kind of interesting. As Lebanon admits Beirut was hit by a bomb, says that emergency ministry, having established an airmobile hospital in Beirut that has been able to receive 200 patients a day, says the shocking damage caused by the massive explosion crippling the city sees Lebanon having reached a critical point that challenges its survival as a sovereign state, and also says that this situation has been discussed by President Putin and the Lebanese president, Michael Owen, I guess they pronounce it. A discussion followed by Russia warning Israel it could face dangerous consequences if it continues targeting Syria with airstrikes. A first ever warning to Israel for that operation. What do you think?
Well, I would have to say, Stuart, that it appears that prophecy is beginning to line up. You remember Russia supposedly comes down against Israel and all its allies. So I would have to say that the prophetic timeline is kind of moving like a roller coaster.
It sure is. Yeah, it says here that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pointed out to the United Nations General Assembly, and I got the video, so I know this is true, the warehouse that exploded on 4 August as a Hezbollah arms depot on 27 September 2018. In fact, followed this past January, which was when Israel struck the Syrian countryside with a new missile having a tactical nuclear component in its warhead that causes a smoke mushroom characteristic of a nuclear weapon, an explosion the likes of which has never been seen before until 4 August, when the exact Beirut warehouse that Netanyahu pointed out at the UN exploded. So evidently they have maybe a new weapon. I was wondering, I don't know that much about tactical nukes and all of that, or dirty bombs, or not necessarily dirty bombs, but depleted uranium weapons, because Hal Turner claimed there was and showed the charts of a radiation spike, but everybody else is denying it. Have you heard any more about that?
Well, you're probably not. We're talking about a level of intelligence and information that the world basically is not privy to. So if anyone out there really believes that we can scratch up all the evidence and present it, you're living in a dream world.
Yeah. One of the guys that I quoted in the blog that I did was about, he was arguing that it could not have been a nuclear weapon. And he said, this is his name, Ed Lyman, Union of Concerned Scientists, told Task and Purpose that he had not seen any elevated radiation levels or other indications that the explosion in Beirut was caused by a nuclear device. It would be very hard to cover it up, he added. If there were a nuclear explosion, there would be many other effects, high radiation levels being only one of them. They are not present. There would be reports of radiation injuries far from the blast site. But the initial explosion may have triggered a chemical explosion at the port, as the video suggests. Now, he doesn't talk anything about the pictures of this missile coming in, which we have, and I guess you could say, well, maybe they're doctored, but it sure doesn't look like it. And it just makes you wonder exactly who's trying to start a war. Now, if you look closely at those pictures on the blog that I posted on LakeGateBlogger.com, you will see what appears to be a very large TR-3B going into cloaking. And there was another report of a TR-3B, or a triangular type aircraft, that was spotted and did not go under cloak. Now, I'm not saying the TR-3B fired that missile. There might have been several TR-3Bs. You remember those pictures? I think it was in Afghanistan, Larry, where this TR-3B came kind of out of nowhere, slowed down, stopped, and then blew up. What was it, in Afghanistan or some other place? Holdout. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that was that was really a classic because you could see the TR-3B and what looked like they were using some type of particle beam weapon or laser on the Taliban. It was Taliban stronghold there. And this looks very similar to it. And what's odd to me, Stuart, is what Trump said. Remember, within hours of this event, Trump kept saying that it was an attack. It was an attack and that it was a bomb. He kept using the term bomb. He didn't say missile, but he said bomb. And he never did, even though he didn't do a lot more talk about it, that was his initial remarks, which to me indicates he knew something. He knew pretty much, Stuart, that this wasn't a fertilizer explosion, if you will.
Yeah. He, a lot of people don't realize, but I think it's Trump's uncle or a relative of Trump, a fairly close relative, had access to Tesla technology. And a TR-3B is an anti-gravity device. And I even have pictures of it being hauled into it's being lifted up by a derrick. Obviously something happened, or a crane, I guess you could call it. And you can clearly see what it is. And then I have other pictures of these aircraft on aircraft carriers. I posted one where one is spotted on the moon. People can roll their eyes all they want. There's a picture of it on the moon, and they are fit for space travel. Anyway, a lot of stuff is going on, and I guess I would say it's really a big heads up. There seems to be a lot of weird stuff going on. Larry, am I right or wrong?
Yeah, and it's really interesting, Stuart, that we're actually finding a lot of weird stuff going on worldwide about the time that the deep state and the left want a total lockdown.
Yeah, and of course they want to get rid of Trump, and maybe they have decided this is it. We have to get rid of Trump. And, when you make a cryptic statement like he did, well, I got a lot of rich people that don't like what I'm doing, and I may have to disappear basically for a while, indicates that we are in the middle of a very serious coup attempt. You could call it an insurgency, communist insurgency, socialist insurgency, whatever, Marxist, whatever you want to call it. But there does not appear to be any let-up of the COVID lockdowns and Fauci screaming at the top of his lungs all the time, oh, this is so dangerous. Meanwhile, of course, we find out that a ton of positive so-called tests weren't there at all. They were negative. They were padding it, so to speak. This is all to create fear. Oh, we've got this tremendous, everybody's got COVID-19. We got thousands of people dying all day long. Well, all you got to do, folks, is look at the stats. Go back into 2019 and look how many people died every month. You can find those stats. And then compare it with this year. And there's really not a whole lot of difference. And I'm not saying this is not a dangerous, whatever it is, nanobot virus, because it certainly is. But it just seems very, very suspicious as to how this thing operates. For example, if a church opens up, all of a sudden everybody's got COVID-19 that went there. Has it ever occurred to anybody that somebody could walk in there with a spray bottle and spray that area? These people, you got to understand deep state. They are satanic to the core, number one. Number two, they have absolutely no conscience whatever. They are basically biological computers. That's all they are. They have an agenda. they want to carry out. Doesn't matter how many people die. In fact, the more people die, the better they love it. The more people they can torture, the better they love it. These people are evil. The height of evil, I don't know, maybe Larry could, when he was looking at ancient evil, it almost seems like these people are infected with ancient evil. Something has really gone wrong with their brains and how they're operating and what they're saying. What do you think about that, Larry? I mean, it just seems off the wall crazy, but yet it can't be crazy in the way we mean it, because it's willful and it's deliberate. Everything they do is designed to lower people's immune systems, including the mass, which are worthless, by the way. Test after test, scientific, have proved that they're worthless. So why do they want everybody wearing a mask? Control. If you'll bow down for a mask, you'll bow down eventually for the vaccine. And you will bow down for the mark of the beast. That's the way I look at it. What do you think, Larry? You saw ancient evil, so...
Well, I did. It was really, really interesting. And it actually, you would think ancient evil from all of the old scary Halloween shows or science fiction shows would be a very ugly individual. But it absolutely wasn't. It was absolutely incredibly beautiful. The color was magnificent. It was contained. Ancient evil itself was an entity. That's the best word I can give it. It was an entity that was somewhat imprisoned to some degree. It was restrained. And but yet it was also beautiful in color. It looked magnificent, but at the same time I sensed in my spirit, and I was there in the spirit, that this thing had the ability to literally suck life from everybody on the planet. I mean, the kill factor of this beautiful entity was enormous. I couldn't even explain it. That's the best I can put it. But it's very, what you think it would be is not at all what it is. But at the same time, it was like death walking, if you will. What's interesting, though, I would have to say something that jumps out at me, especially in America, and this comes from, almost 40 years of law enforcement. America appears to me to be in a emotion situation, not reason. It's like an American domestic is going on, and if anybody ever has gone to a domestic, just going there causes you to be the enemy. Both sides hate you. Both sides are so emotional that they couldn't sit there and reason out what they're even talking about. It's hate both directions, and really most of the hate will focus on you if you begin to interfere with this, incredible domestic that they want to bring. And so America's having a domestic that is unsolvable, and it's unsolvable simply because it's moving on emotion and there's no reasoning allowed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even if you run into people, I was just watching a video where this vet, obviously not very well off, in a hotel lobby, and this guy comes over, and I think the fight was over, he didn't have a mask on or something, and starts punching him in the face. Well, come to find out, the guy's got a long record. And I don't know why people are walking around, I'd put a bullet in his head, and that solves the problem. It solves a lot of problems. The Chinese figured that one out a long time ago. And it's too bad that the American people haven't figured that one out a long time ago. I mean, during the Revolution, we figured it out, and we fought with guns. Now, this thing is creeping in so subtly, and they have done such an excellent job of brainwashing and slow cooking the frog, so to speak, that the American people evidently don't even have a clue as to what's being done to them. That's the way I look at it. I don't think they know. Do they? Do they understand? I know the people, there are plenty of people out there that do understand what's going on, but basically they are in a minority. they're certainly not the majority at this point, right?
Well, my somewhat of a short warning would be the fact that if the other side, in other words, if the what the Democrats basically are and the deep state are involved in a coup, and nobody in America seems to be able to spit that word out. I don't know what it is. It's a communist coup, and as a matter of fact, I heard John Moore back on his radio show the other day with Israeli News Live, and John Moore laid it out pretty clear. He said this is absolutely a communist Muslim combined coup against America. Yep. And he said, and John Moore said, the American people won't stand up to them, or hadn't yet, and he said that if the American people ever really do stand up, it'll be a civil war that day. It'll begin that very day, because they're so used now to pushing Americans around that if an American ever stands up and fights back, they'll go into a civil war because it's unsolvable. It's two cultures that are clashing on the battlefield.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I guess we do go into kind of a civil war. According to Jeremiah, there's no question that what's going on is part of it. And at the same time, all this is going on. Did you see that deal where Trump was, I guess, switching subjects here a little bit? I can't remember who he was being interviewed by, but he was talking about the arrival and the aliens. Did you hear that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw that. That was Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs is one of my favorites on Fox Business Channel, and people ought to really listen to him. He lays it out. But anyway, Lou and Trump went into UFOs, and Trump talked to him about it. And listen, I can't vet it and I can't prove it. But, and people get mad at me for saying Danoon's name or Israeli News Live. There's some people don't like him. But I can't help that. He does have sources. He does have insiders. And he has claimed, true or not, and it's odd that Lou Dobbs on Fox Business would have President Trump on just the other day talking about the UFOs, and Lou was bringing up the subject of disclosure, and Trump was saying yes. But Danoon is saying that he has sources from the inside that are claiming October surprise. And the October surprise that they're claiming was two-part. Number one, supposedly it's involving the coup, but also it's involving an alien disclosure by Donald Trump. Now, time will tell.
Well, that's interesting because you remember he also said you'd be surprised at who did 9/11 and the Twin Towers. I think he knows perfectly well who did all that. And if they try to get rid of him, he may do the Samson option and reveal all this stuff. But what I'm curious about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just wanted to get your opinion here because there's kind of a secret, even to some of Trump's knowledge. If you'll remember, he embraced General Michael Flynn early on.
Yes.
And he brought Flynn in for a specific job, and the deep state, the world deep state and the U.S. deep state, had to ambush him. They had to ambush Flynn because they knew where all the bodies were hidden. Well, what do you want to bet he's already told Trump some of this stuff about the Twin Towers and about a lot of things, and Trump already has that knowledge, and he may be about to release some of that.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so dangerous, because if truly they are going to start doing something, which I strongly doubt, but they might, you just never know how they're going to do this. But did Trump specifically say, I did not hear it, I just heard about it, but did Trump specifically say he believed that the UFOs and an arrival, or what was that about? Or just that it was going to maybe be a disclosure?
He basically dodged the question to some degree, indicating that he was for disclosure and was possibly going to bring it and tell some things. But, not today, if you will. But a number of the experts, Stuart, are claiming, and I mean a number of them now in the background, are claiming that the recent naval and military leaks I'll say the word leaks that have been coming out are really soft disclosure, and they're bringing this about, and possibly we're pretty close because many people, including Stan Dale, believe that the arrival, we're right on the cusp.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this arrival in Project Bluebeam, and I'm sure most people remember Werner von Braun, who was a German scientist who came over here under Operation Paperclip and was basically ran NASA, I guess you could call it. Originally he was at Redstone Arsenal. My relative of mine actually worked under von Braun. But anyway, von Braun said that they were going to have all these so-called enemies, and the last card, he said, was going to be the alien card, and they were going to play the alien card. Well, then in comes Project Bluebeam. Folks, if you haven't seen it, you can go on Google and look it up. But Project Bluebeam, the guy that brought that out, and this was just confirmed by a naval insider, I think a week ago, who said he knew perfectly well that Project Bluebeam was real. And Project Bluebeam deals basically with a lot of things, but one of them is a fake arrival using holographic technology and probably real anti-gravity craft and the combination to bring in the fake Messiah. And Red Elk, whom we've brought up, I know a lot of people don't like Red Elk. By the way, Red Elk was a seminary graduate. He had a degree from a Christian seminary. He told me, I just don't believe anything they had to say. But he went through it all, so people want to just say he's a charlatan and an idiot and don't even know what they're talking about. But one of the things he said that stuck with me, he said, you don't want to go outside when these balls of light or whatever show up. He says, you want to go down into your basement and you want to hide, because this is the fake arrival and very possibly a fake rapture. Now, what's interesting about that is if you go into New Age literature, and I think it was Llewellyn or somebody like that who wrote a book about it, said that what was going to happen was they were going to rapture religious leaders, governmental leaders, and then they'd be gone for maybe a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they would come back with miraculous powers. And she said the reason they're going to do this is to solidify the religions of the world and the politics of the world. Now, personally, I think that would be a tremendous deception. What a tremendous delusion that would be if that actually took place. She said that's what their plan is. What do you think, Larry? Because obviously Project Bluebeam is a fake arrival, and that's what Werner von Braun said. He said it's all fake. It's all a fake. What do you think?
Well, I've got a little bit of a mixed feeling on that because of the fact that, you know, to go back in the original Bible about the iron and the clay, I think that mankind, and especially the deep state that wants to do this, the powers that be, they really do want to bring in a fake rapture or a fake alien invasion, and the main reason for that, Stuart, is they are well aware of the fallen ones, and they don't want to join sources or join hands with them for a world government. They want to just set up a complete human government over the world, and that's what they're trying to do, and that's why Bluebeam would be so good and so helpful, and they could have their little invasion. You could see it and everything else without the fallen ones. But you remember what Noah had said about how that they're not going to reveal them. She said they'll have to reveal themselves, and they will.
Yep.
I think the fallen ones are going to come with their own invasion or their own arrival, if you will, and they don't play well with others.
Well, you know, that's kind of interesting you bring that up, because if you ever watched the X-Files, which I enjoyed immensely, even though it's how do I say, it's like ancient aliens. The big lie is in there, the big deception, the big delusion. But I remember the scene where the rich men of the earth were called into a hangar by the aliens, the fallen ones. And when they all arrived there, the aliens come in and kill them all. Now, Stan Deo did some really amazing research on Daniel and the arrival and the hybrid government. So I've always thought that what happens is the rich men of the earth attempt to bring in their New World Order, but it doesn't really work. The real New World Order will be an arrival of the fallen ones, like you were just saying, and that's not going to be a fake. That's going to be real. And they will set up this alien hybrid government that Stan Dale found in the book of Daniel when he re-examined it. But to me, there's no question that if they are exposing all this now, they either know the arrival is coming and they're speeding up the acclamation project, or they're getting ready to spring Bluebeam, not realizing that right behind it may be the real fallen ones, which would trick everybody. I don't know. Kind of interesting, though, all of this disclosure that's going on. And, of course, a lot of people don't even believe that the fallen ones are here already. But the advance guard of Satan and his minions is already here. And in Revelation chapter 12 is when you see the arrival. And in Thessalonians, it talks about the arrival. And how that those that were not protected by the Lord Jesus Christ are going to fall into this thing. And I can see that happening. I mean, if the world will fall for the COVID-19 situation, and they will allow themselves to have all their freedoms taken away, all their money taken away, all their children taken away, all of this stuff gone, and they don't even raise a whimper, what in the world, Larry, will they do when Bluebeam goes into full force or in effect, or if it's a combination of Bluebeam and Satan at the same time?
Well, I can't imagine that they could wrap their mind around it. If they're having that hard a time with China and COVID, I don't know how anything bigger could really grasp their attention. They would probably just fall out and surrender. That's all I know. But oddly enough, though, all of this dovetails, it seems, as far as the timing. You remember when I was asking Stan Deo a question, I asked him, I said, well, Stan, I said, when this arrival comes and all this investigation you did in the book of Daniel and the actual original languages of it and what you found, will that arrival be from the aliens coming down or possibly aliens coming forth from under the earth? And he said both. He said that Daniel arrival, or the spoken of in the book of Daniel, will be aliens arriving on the planet in the sky and at the same time coming up out of the ground because they've been here all along too.
Yep. Yeah, I know people roll their eyes when they hear that kind of stuff. When I was doing Project Red Star and I was looking at pictures from JPL, satellite pictures of Mars, and found that Tithonia. Well, you can see two flying saucers sitting right there on the ramp. I mean, there they are. So people can laugh and roll their eyes, but hey, we are much further advanced in technology than anyone knows. I'm not even sure the movies are actually keeping up with it. Nor in time travel experiments.
Yeah,
and
by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to mention, you mentioned Tithonia. What's odd is Tom Horn, he used to send me data years ago, and that was before his big fire. But he sent me some images from JPL. I know you had some too, but he sent me 2 images, and I forwarded them to you, so you've seen them personally, of images that he had of a triangular craft and someone standing behind it, and it looked like they were doing some drilling, and it was on the planet Mars. It was real clear. And he also had some images of a canyon on Mars where there was a base, if you will, or a couple of bases that was, on Mars in those canyons, hidden out of sight. And, I sent those to you, so you had them. And oddly enough, I never could get Tom Horn to talk about them ever again. But I'll say this. I recently stumbled across some images in a book. I got an old book of it was a break off of the Ingo Swann, remote viewer. He was the original. He's the one that taught Ed Dames and all the others. And anyway, he had been to a number of locations on the moon, and he drew some of his own graphics, if you will, and I got my hands on some of those. And the bases, some of the base locations he drew on the moon exactly, and I do mean exactly, matched the base style on Mars that was in that canyon. And I know you saw those because I sent them to you.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. But, of course, we're way above most people's. It's not their mental ability at all. It's not their intelligence. They can't seem to think outside the box very far, and so all of this is stunning, and therefore it's disturbing, and therefore it can't be true because I don't want it to be true. It's kind of like going to a sci-fi movie and you come out and you say, "Boy, that was a good movie," but it was only a movie. We don't want that to be real. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. My apologies to anybody that just blowed their head off. But oddly enough, what's odd is that if you go to start talking about Mars, the Matrix dweller can't dwell on planet Mars because Mars isn't in the Matrix.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Let's switch over to, before we run out of time here, Colorado State University raises the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season forecast to now 24 named storms, second most on record. I guess that tropical storm, Isaias, did a tremendous amount of damage and knocked out power to people all over New England. And I don't even know if, people in Vermont and New York, New Hampshire, Maine, and whatnot, they're out of power. A lot of them are out of power. And this is only the beginning. So now they're talking that this is going to be a lot worse. And while we're on that subject, James McKinney said that the sun and the radiation levels and the frequency levels feed these storms. And we are definitely moving into an area. The Schumann resonance is not stable anymore. People are losing it. And I think a lot of this has to do with the frequency changes as we're moving in. Have you got any more news on the inbounds, Larry?
No, and I'm a little concerned because we've got a large sunspot of the new solar cycle 25 that's sparkling with flares that's pointing right now directly at Earth, and we're not getting anything out of space weather and NOAA. It's like suddenly they've quit talking about it. I just saw yesterday a complete image of it, and it's a big one. And this is what's odd. I walked outside yesterday, and I told you I was in my shirt and hat, and I could feel that stuff going through my clothes. The radiation, the UV was so strong here. There's something up, but they're almost like now our cosmic data is not much greater anymore than earthquakes and volcanoes, which they really don't mention that much anymore.
Well, I think they're afraid. that the general public's going to very soon catch on to bad troubles. I remember James McKinney in one of his books said that NASA and the rest of them aren't going to really say anything. They've muzzled them. And Gordon Michael Scallion, he was kind of a remote viewer, seer, I guess you could call him, mystic. I don't know what you'd want to call him. And he said basically the same thing, that they were not going to be telling people. Well, now we got a guy by the name of Mike from around the world, and I've heard both. He's a fake, he's this, he's that. I don't care. It doesn't matter. He's got very interesting information, and he just came out with some stuff. Let me go through these. Interrupt me anywhere, Larry. These explosions that are happening are strategic targets, obviously war. He says Israel is not responsible for them, and they know what places are vulnerable. Now, I wanted to get back a little bit. If there were TR-3Bs involved in this Lebanon, Beirut deal, that's got to be global deep state, Larry. Don't you think?
Yeah, that's pretty much the deep state. Those are all black projects. That's not, and I'm not even sure that that's the U.S. Space Force that Trump was talking about. The black projects usually are the TR-3Bs and other craft, and they're run by, like you said, the global deep state. But it's time for their war, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Here's the other thing he says. Number 2, high-level operatives want to bring in a new caliphate. Number 3, the port of Beirut was not very secure, which is true, it wasn't. 4, the people want a particular person to run the caliphate. Keep your eye on the one who claims he doesn't really want to do it. 5, the house of Saud is a huge problem. That's kind of interesting because of, what's his name? Can't even remember, the prince.
Mohammed bin Salman.
Salman, yes. There have been a number of attempts on him. Anyway, these explosions are going somewhere. The operatives are everywhere, including Russia, China, Pakistan. Number 7, the players are infiltrated into all militaries. They are trying to get rid of them, but it's difficult. They are referred to as ghosts. Expect 2,000 explosions worldwide. So we're entering into what the Bible would call the age of terror, basically. Trojan simply means unexpected. Calling the asteroids or either side of Jupiter Trojan asteroids means that before their predicted date, the debris traveling with these asteroids will cause us grief. That's your inbounds. I was kind of interested in this. Would you be able to launch missiles like they did over there in Beirut and then cover it up as an asteroid impact? What do you think?
Well, oddly enough,
if you were going to attack a nation, you do that, and then you say, well, they're just asteroids that did all the damage. We didn't have anything to do with it.
Well, Stuart, if you'll remember, and some of this came from Start to Fall, but some of it came from others, there appeared at one time to be a plan, if you'll remember, when just before détente between Trump and Kim Jong-un, remember there was a plan that they were going to be a massive explosion to take Kim and his leadership out, and they were going to say it was an asteroid strike. Remember that?
Yes, I do, now that you bring it up. Anyway, number 9, people will begin to see sprites in the sky. Well, we're already seeing them, massive sprites. A sprite, folks, if you're not familiar with it, are huge plasma events on the top of thunderstorms. And we're really beginning to see some big sprites. Magma is rising towards the Earth crust, which can induce electromagnetic change. Absolutely. A lot of the so-called UFO reports are because of deep underground movement, and it creates plasma releases. And there was a lady over in Eau Claire. It's very interesting. She was outside, and this big ball rose up out of the ground, floated around, and finally left. But that's a plasma ball from some deep underground movement of the Earth. Anyway, people will begin to see these sprites. Magma rising, we already know that. Volcanoes are really starting to edge up. Many things will catch fire. In fact, they're saying the LA fire now was actually a magma fire. Things are becoming very unstable, he says. Number 10, as mentioned last week, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Brazil, Venezuela will see increased volcanism, which will affect the United States and Canada. Madagascar will have a geological event that will be a warning for Italy. And remember, Italy has a huge supervolcano by it. The large chamber under Italy is under a lot of pressure. I think that's what he's talking about. Number 13, the light of the sun will change into a golden color. It's doing it right now. No light will hit the earth from the sun at a future point. Sporadic heat rays will affect the earth for months. And we're talking about 2,000 to 5,000 degrees. Well, the Bible says it's going to scorch men with fire. The infrared photon emissions of the sun will be redirected. The moon will look red. Even though the atmosphere will look dark, it will be extremely hot. The smoke in the atmosphere will be so thick from all the volcanoes erupting that people will not be able to see the stars. Now, this is one of the reasons, folks, why you do need to get masks. And probably the best ones you could get would be the N95 mask. In an emergency, you can even use a coffee filter. But I'll tell you one thing. You do not want to be breathing in volcanic dust. It'll rip your lungs apart. Anyway, the magnetosphere will sporadically fail. People's minds will be affected. Well, they already are. You can already see the hatred in people's attitudes everywhere. 17, issues like the one in Portland are caused by supernatural entities, Mike claims, and people are displaying the iniquity that is within themselves. What the Book of Enoch says are demons that are coming out of these people. Over the coming week, controversial policies will be in the news. Do you know what that is about, Larry? Controversial policies. We're about out of time.
Well, there was a lot of information that the Democrats and Pelosi were in some secret meetings in the last 24 hours or so while Trump's making these remarks, and it could very well be that there may be some Pelosi may try to override the current government to some degree.
Yeah, this coup could go hot, and the more or the closer that the Justice Department gets to releasing all this stuff on Obama and the rest of them, this is a very dangerous time, folks, because they may not want to put up with it, and they will resort to anything to keep it a secret. Anyway, Larry, thanks a lot for coming on. Any last word?
Yeah, my last word would be for the coming days, and this includes this weekend even, I would stay close to home.
Yeah. Yep, there's a lot of reasons probably why they're doing some of what they're doing that they're not stating. And the inbounds, volcanism, earthquakes are coming. There's no question about it. The Bible's very, very blunt about it. And we are entering that final time. And I'm going to be doing some work on the great rapture that everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people mock it and say there is no such thing. Actually, there is, and there's a very good reason why the Lord wants his bride taken out of here. Anyway, good night, folks. Take care. Heads up. I wouldn't be going too far this weekend. Anyway, good night, everyone. Take care.